values in the hearts and minds of millions throughout the world. Mevlevi ritual dance, or Sema, consists of several stages with different meanings. The first stage, Naat-i Sharif, is a eulogy to the messenger of Islam and all prophets before him who represent love. To praise them is to acknowledge and praise God Almighty, who created and sent them to humanity as a mercy. This eulogy is followed by a drumbeat on the kudum, symbolizing the divine command, be, for the creation of the entire universe. The Naat-i Sharif is followed by a Taksim, an improvisation on the reed flute or ney. This expresses the divine breath which gives life to everything. Then follows the Sultan Veled procession, or Devri-i Veled, accompanied by Peshrev music. This is a circular, anti-clockwise procession 3 times around the turning space. The greetings of the Semazin, or whirling dervishes, during the procession represent the 3 stages of knowledge. Ilmal Yakin, received knowledge gained from others or through study. Ayn al-Yakin, knowing by seeing or observing for oneself, and Haq al-Yakin, knowledge gained through direct experience, gnosis. During the Sema itself, there are 4 salams, or musical movements, each with a distinct rhythm. At the beginning, during, and close of each salam, the Semazin testify to God's existence, unity, majesty, and power. The first salam represents the human being's birth to truth through feeling and mind. It represents his complete acceptance of his condition as a creature created by God. The second salam expresses the rapture of the human being witnessing the splendor of creation in the face of God's greatness and omnipotence. The third salam is the rapture of dissolving into love and the sacrifice of the mind to love. It is complete submission, unity, and annihilation of self in the Beloved. This is the state that is known as nirvana in Buddhism and fana filah in Islam. The next stage in Islamic belief is the state of servanthood represented by the Prophet, who is called God's servant, foremost and subsequently his messenger. The aim of Sema is not uncontrolled ecstasy and loss of consciousness, but the realization of submission to God. In the fourth salam, just as the Prophet ascends to the spiritual throne of Allah and then returns to his task on earth, the whirling dervish, after the ascent of his spiritual journey, returns to his task, to his servanthood. He is a servant of God, of his books, of his prophets, of his whole creation. This is followed by a recitation from the Quran.
لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت.
The surah or chapter, Mary, on the miraculous birth of Jesus and his mission. At the end, by the salute, the dervish demonstrates again the number 1 in his appearance, arms consciously and humbly crossed, and by this, the unity of God. The ceremony ends with a prayer for the peace of the souls of all the prophets and believers. After the completion of the Sama, all the dervishes retire silently to their rooms for meditation and further remembrance of God.
The costumes are symbolic as well. The hat that they wear, I think, is of camel skin, and it represents, I think, the tombstone of man's ego. And then the white, big, whirling skirt is a shroud. It represents the shroud over the tombstone. And they wear a black cape, which they shed, and when they take that cape off, it's a symbol of rebirth.
It's in the dance of the dervishes that this relationship between the head, knowledge, and the heart, feelings, and so forth, and then the body are exemplified in a very dramatic way.
The dance, the whirling itself is beautiful because the semazen has one hand extended up towards heaven and the other down to earth, in a sense receiving the blessings and mercy of God and sharing them with his brothers and sisters.
The Mevlevi dervish traveling around the United States, the world, it offers a taste. No more than a taste, but something very important, that initial awareness that there is something out there to be sought, and then we must chase it, and then we must do the work of following.
Rumi's message was a message of tolerance and love, and in a world today where men seem to be separated from each other by religious differences, by cultural differences, by color, if we were to espouse his message and truly live what he says, there would be no way that we could hate each other. We could do nothing but love each other. Rumi's message was a message of universal love. And sadly, even today, 700 years after his life, we haven't learned it.
Rumi's life and works show us that it is not faith, belief, and religion which cause hatred, conflict, and violence, but the sins of hatred and greed and other symptoms of the unrestrained ego. And he showed us how the true practice of religion, the purification of the heart, is the remedy for these. In our days, his life and works are a reminder to all that the clash of civilizations is far from inevitable, and they show us how to derive hope, renewal, and reconciliation, rather than despair, fear, and enmity from our differences. He invites us to call constantly to mind that we are all one. From God we come, and to God we will return.
That we worship the same God, who's one. And as I learn more about Islam traditions and theology, I am convinced that we're much closer than we are apart.
Come, come, come again, whoever you may be. Come again, even though you may be a pagan or fire worshiper. Our hearth is not the threshold of despair. Come again, even if you may have violated your vows 100 times. Come again.